Hello, good morning. I do hear you, and I do hope that you hear me too. Can you confirm this, please?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
A- Excellent. Very pleased to be with you today. Very sad to be with you only digitally, and hoping to be able to be with you face to face at another stage. I did have the pleasure to meet your minister in Paris 2 weeks ago in the context of our ministerial meeting of agriculture ministers. So, Minister Kęstutis Navikas, many thanks for having joined us in this very important event. The theme of today's meeting could not be more suitable. The theme, Peace for Food, is more relevant than ever. I just come back from the COP27 in Sharm el-Sheikh, where food systems, agriculture, and the relationship with climate change were discussed. And like at our agriculture ministerial meeting, I heard a lot about how much farmers are struggling with unprecedented climate conditions and how this is affecting their harvests. Climate change is putting food markets under stress. And in this context, it is a rather unfortunate that an additional event has put even more stress on food markets. And I'm talking here about Russia's large-scale aggression against Ukraine that is posing additional severe risks to global food security and to the right to adequate food, including through the destruction of infrastructure and crops and by damaging trust in supply chains. The war has added pressure to agricultural markets, pushing up international food and input prices, raising food security concerns, notably in key importer countries in the Middle East and North Africa. At their peak, early in spring, wheat prices rose up to 60% above the pre-war situation. And some countries, including Russia, added to pressure by export restrictions on wheat and on fertilizers. Other commodities have experienced high price increases. In the meantime, prices have calmed down a little bit, but it continues to be a lot of uncertainty in markets, including because we do not know whether trade through the Black Sea will continue to be possible, and including because some countries are continuing to use export restrictions or threatening to use them. Peace for food is therefore more necessary than ever. An end of this war would contribute greatly to calming down food markets. And we also know that absence of food and stark food security risks can put peace at risk. Where people do not have access to food, social unrest arises. The relationship between food and peace and food is therefore stronger than ever. And your meeting today is therefore a very important one. As I mentioned before, we met on November 3 and 4 early this month in Paris with ministers and high-level representatives of the OECD and also non-members at the ministerial level to discuss agriculture and food systems. We did this under the title Building Sustainable Agriculture and Food Systems in a Changing Environment. We discussed shared challenges and transformative solutions. And if there's one outcome from this meeting that brought together around 280 participants, if there is one outcome, it is that the countries present realized that they all shared the same challenges. The problem of dealing with climate change is a problem that farmers and other actors in food systems across the globe share. The pressure to adjust the production method in order to deal with climate change and in order to improve their contribution to environmental sustainability is also a shared challenge. And an additional challenge that actors in the food systems share is that they're finding it increasingly hard to make a livelihood out of their activities because they have to deal with so many pressures. We refer therefore to the challenges in food system as a triple challenge. And during our ministerial, ministers and other senior representatives discussed those challenges together. The challenge of guaranteeing global food security, the challenge of ensuring environmental sustainability, and the challenge too of ensuring livelihoods in food systems. We had the pleasure to have with us the Minister of Agrarian Policy and Food from Ukraine, Mykola Solsky, only digitally, like I'm only digitally with you today, to hear virtually from him about how the Russian invasion is affecting production in Ukraine and how farmers in Ukraine are dealing with the situation. This triggered us up of a very lively discussion on food security. We also heard from many ministers and also from representatives from the private sector, including farmers, about how they are struggling to make the necessary investments in order to ensure that production is environmentally sustainable. And we also heard how difficult farmers are finding it to continue to make a livelihood around from their work. It is indeed a formidable challenge to meet, to come up with solutions to all of this. We have calculated that if we want to reach global food security and environmental sustainability at the same time, we would need to increase productivity in food systems by around 28% over the next decade. That's a lot. And that number is even more daunting if you realize that over the past decade, productivity increase was only 1/3 of this. So we would need to increase productivity in the agricultural sector by 28%, triple productivity growth above what it was a decade ago. How is this possible? How can we achieve this? We do believe that this is really difficult. I'm not sure whether we will be able to meet it, but what we consider important is to have put this number out in the public and to signal to the public at large how daunting the challenges are that we have in food systems. And you in the audience are the actors who will have to find solutions to meet that challenge. How do we at the OECD help you with this? First, we are tracking whether productivity is increasing or not. And we are tracking also whether environmental indicators are increasing or improving at the same time or not. We are doing this in multiple ways, and notably, we are doing this with our so-called agro-environmental indicators. This is a monitoring tool that we have put in place and that tracks progress on both agricultural productivity growth and environmental sustainability. We believe that this is a useful tool not only for policymakers to track how their sector is performing, but also for actors in the private sector, because it helps you to signal, well, we may have done a bit less good on the productivity growth, but look here, we have been improving a lot on environmental sustainability. Or the contrary, we have improved a lot on productivity, but less on environmental sustainability. Or the ideal case, we have improved along both lines. But tracking, monitoring is important in order to understand whether we are going as a community in any way in the right direction. It will also help us to assess whether maybe the right environmental sustainability productivity combination differs across countries depending on climatic situation and other regional specificities. We also track, in addition to tracking how productivity is behaving, we also track how governments are intervening in agricultural markets. That we do this with something called producer support estimates. With these data, well, we also call them data on agricultural subsidies, we understand how much governments are spending on agriculture, but above all, we understand what they are spending on. We know that in recent years, governments that are covered, the 54 countries that are covered in our data sets, have been spending around $800 billion on support to agriculture. Now, supporting agriculture is a good thing because agriculture is encountering, as I mentioned, a lot of challenges. But unfortunately, the funding has not been spent on the type of measures that we consider to be good for productivity, good for livelihoods, and good for the environment. In fact, spending on innovation, on infrastructure, on skills, on research, the kind of spending that is good to address the triple challenge, that type of spending has gone down as a share of total spending. Whereas a decade ago, 16% of total spending was spent on what we call the win-win-win spending. Today, it's only 13%. Now, in the declaration of the ministerial meeting, ministers have committed to change this and to direct more spending to what is considered good spending. So, in addition to tracking, monitoring what countries are doing in terms of productivity and environmental performance, in addition to tracking how governments are spending their money, what else are we doing? A lot of our work focuses, there's the third aspect, on trade, markets, and on transparency. So we support with our work the openness of agricultural markets, and we believe that this is very important, notably in terms of tensions, in order to maintain stability in markets. We are one of the important players in AMIS, the Agricultural Market Information System that provides transparency in agricultural markets, and that has proven to be very useful during COVID-19, a bit less so during the Russian aggression, but nevertheless useful in order to understand what is going on in markets. And when we have knowledge, when we have transparency, overreactions and overshooting in markets is less likely. So I've mentioned already three things to you. Let me mention a fourth thing. We conduct in-depth country analysis in many countries in order to help them to build support innovation and to achieve sustainable and resilient agricultural productivity growth. We are notably right now doing this at the EU level. Fifth, our codes and schemes facilitate international trade, including by encouraging the production and use of high quality seeds and plants, because the codes and schemes represent a certification systems that we run at the OECD for vegetables, fruit, seeds, and forest products, and also for tractors. These certification systems make international trade easy. And last but not least, very important, the corporate research program. With the corporate research program, we fund researchers in member countries to conduct research abroad or to organize international conferences and therefore exchange best knowledge and learn from each other. We were very proud that during the Agricultural Minister Conference early November, Israel joined the corporate research program. We are also very pleased that Lithuania is a member of this important program. Now, with these 6 items, monitoring the progress in sustainable productivity growth, monitoring the spending of governments and the type of spending for agriculture. Third, facilitating the openness of markets and transparency in markets. Fourth, in-depth analysis at the country level. Fifth, certification schemes in the agricultural sector. And sixth, our corporate research program. We support your work and we support our members' work in the direction of increased sustainable productivity growth. We are very pleased that during the Agricultural Ministerial Conference, ministers supported this work, called for more action in this direction, and expressed their trust in the collaboration with the OECD in this field. In the declaration, ministers also expressed their concern about the situation in Ukraine and expressed their support for the Black Sea Initiative and for the EU priority lanes that help the exports from Ukrainian wheat and other agricultural commodities to the rest of the world. We do know that currently, thanks to these initiatives over the past months, the exports from Ukraine nearly reached levels that they had reached before the war, and that therefore it was possible for Ukraine to continue contributing to stability of agricultural market thanks to these important initiatives. Please count on us to continue supporting your efforts of the private sector, your efforts of Lithuanian policymakers to meet the triple challenge of meeting global food security, of ensuring environmental sustainability, and providing stable livelihoods for all actors across the food supply chains. We stand ready to continue to support you, and we look forward to continued collaboration. I wish you a very successful meeting on this important topic, peace for food, and I look forward to listen to your discussions. Thank you.
Thank you so much. If you're still with us for a minute, if you don't mind, I will ask you just a very brief question. Thank you for reminding everybody about the support the sector has from you. Our audiences here are mostly businesses, NGOs, institutions, but what about the general audiences? How could they contribute to achieving peace for food faster? What would your message to the general audience, the people, be?
Well, we have a particular situation right now where we are dealing, in particular in your region with an important national security threat. So this is something where I think that is potentially beyond ordinary people. Where ordinary people, the public at large, can help. When it comes to the peace for food aspect, is to remain calm and not to overreact in times of change. Just like at the policy level, interventions like export restrictions and very intensive stock building upsets markets, creates additional stability. This could a private reactions like increased hoarding at the family level can also lead to these kind of problems. We have seen quite a bit of that in my home country Germany. Stay calm, stay responsible, but definitely, yes, also request from policymakers and from the private sector the transparency you need and the information you need as public at large in order to understand how to act responsibly.